What if the thing wearing you out isn't doing too much, but the fact that you're never fully inside anything you do? Think about the end of your day. You got everything done, and still you can't point to a single moment you were really in. You answered the messages, you finished the tasks. You were at dinner, technically, while your mind was already rehearsing tomorrow. The house was busy, you were busy, and somehow you feel like you missed your own day. Most people call this a time problem. If there were a few more hours, if the load on us were a little lighter, it would sort itself out. But notice something. Even on the quiet evening when you've finally cleared your calendar, the same restlessness comes back. If the cure were a lighter load, rest would fix it. Most of the time, it doesn't. Scripture described this condition long before there were phones to blame it on. And in a story just 5 verses long, a single word Luke chooses completely changes where the problem actually lives. Most people remember this scene in Luke's Gospel as a gentle story about a busy woman who needed to slow down. Jesus is traveling, and a woman named Martha opens her home to him. That is no small thing. In that world, hospitality was demanding, physical, unglamorous work, and Martha threw herself into it. Her sister Mary did something different. She sat down at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. And here is where that one word appears. Luke says Martha was distracted by all the preparations. The word he chooses does not mean lazy, and it does not mean she was doing too little. It means almost the opposite. It carries the sense of being pulled in many directions at once, dragged here and there, stretched thin between competing demands. Martha was not failing to work. She was being torn apart by her work. I think this is exactly why so many of us remember the story wrong. We treat it as a story about laziness, when what it actually describes is a kind of overwork, effort with no direction, thrown everywhere at once. And notice what it does to her. She comes to Jesus, and underneath her request there is an accusation. "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work alone? Tell her to help me." She is not only overwhelmed, she is keeping score, comparing, quietly resentful. The scattering has moved from her hands into her heart. Jesus answers with a tenderness that is easy to miss. "Martha, Martha." He says her name twice, the way you speak to someone you love who cannot see what they are doing to themselves. "You are worried and upset about many things," he tells her, "but few things are needed, or really only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." There is one more detail worth slowing down for. The word Jesus uses when he says you are worried comes from the same root as the word he uses elsewhere, when he tells his followers not to worry about their lives, about what they will eat or what they will wear. So Martha's trouble was not just a full afternoon. It was the quiet anxiety of someone who believes that if she does not hold everything together, everything will fall apart. Jesus is not scolding that fear. He is loosening its grip. Now we come to the part we most often get wrong. It would be easy to hear this as Jesus preferring stillness over effort, as if sitting quietly is holy and serving is not. But that is not what the passage says. Just before this scene, in the very same chapter, Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan, a story that honors a man precisely for stopping and doing the hard, inconvenient work of caring for a stranger. My reading is that Luke sets these two scenes side by side on purpose. So the problem is not action. The problem is not service. Martha's hospitality was genuinely good. The problem was that she let the many things crowd out the one thing that would have held everything else in place. That word, one, is the center of everything. Jesus does not tell Martha to do nothing. He tells her that of all the things pulling at her, there is one that matters most, and that once it is chosen, this one thing is not taken away. Everything else in that house was urgent and temporary. The meal would be eaten and forgotten, but the presence she was too scattered to receive was the one thing that could have steadied her hands for all the rest. This is where it starts to get uncomfortable, because this is exactly where most of us stop short. The moment we hear a story like this, we reach for the obvious fix. Do less, simplify, clear the calendar, and there is real wisdom in that. But this is the part I find most challenging, because subtraction alone does not make you present. You could cut half your responsibilities and still feel torn apart, because the scattering was never only in your calendar. It lives in you. It is the reflex to reach for the next thing before the current one is done. It is the second screen open behind the first. It is a mind that treats every moment as a waiting room for the next one. And that changes the whole question. It is no longer, how do I do less? It becomes, what is my center? Martha's kitchen is not the villain here. Take away her guests, and she would find something else to be torn between. The problem is not the number of tasks. It is the absence of a center. A life with no chosen one thing will always feel scattered, no matter how empty the day looks. This is why so many people who finally get their quiet evening still cannot enjoy it. The tasks are gone, but the habit of divided attention remains. They sit down to rest and immediately feel the pull to be somewhere else, doing something else, proving something. Rest does not cure the scattering, it exposes it. Picture someone sitting in the stands at their child's game on a Saturday. They are physically there, but they watch most of it from behind a phone held up to record, half answering a work message between plays, already lining up the afternoon's errands in their head. Afterward, they will say they were there, and in a sense they were, the same way Martha was in the same room as Jesus. Present in body, scattered in attention, quietly missing the very thing they came for. So what does choosing the one thing actually look like on an ordinary Tuesday, not in the quiet of Martha's house but in your own kitchen, with your phone buzzing and a list that never ends? It starts with a decision most of us never make on purpose. You decide in advance what your one thing is, and you let it order the rest. For Mary, that meant receiving from Jesus before doing anything for him. That order matters. My reading is not that Mary was being lazy. She was not setting service aside forever. She was refusing to let service take the place of the very presence that would have made her service whole. The person who begins the day with God is not doing less than the person who begins by working. They are simply working from a different center. And then, in the small moments, presence becomes the practice of refusing the second thing. If you are in a conversation, you are only in that conversation. If you are doing one task, you let it be the only task in front of you. It sounds too simple to matter until you try it and discover how hard your attention fights to stay divided. That pull to check, to switch, to line up what is next, is not innocent. It is the very thing Jesus named in Martha, and every time you notice it and gently come back, you are choosing the one thing again. None of this means presence is only a matter of willpower, or that a focused mind proves a faithful heart. Martha was not a lesser believer than Mary. She was a loved woman who could not yet see that her devotion had quietly turned into agitation. The invitation in this passage is not condemnation. It is a hand on the shoulder and a name spoken twice. You are worried about many things. Only one is needed, and it is still within your reach. So here is one thing to carry into tomorrow. Choose a single stretch of your day, even 10 minutes, and give it your undivided attention. Not more tasks. One task, or one conversation, or one passage of scripture, held with nothing else running behind it. When your attention reaches for the next thing, and it will, do not meet it with frustration. Just name it and come back. The returning is the whole practice. You are not trying to empty your life. You are learning to choose its center. Because the goal was never a quieter calendar. It was a steadier soul, the kind that can stand inside a full and demanding life and still be fully there. And here is the answer to what looked like a contradiction at the start. Being present is not doing less. It is choosing a center. Martha's real problem was never that she cared too much or worked too hard. It was that she let the many things take the place of the one. And the one thing, Jesus said, is the thing that will not be taken away. If you want to keep understanding Scripture this clearly and putting it into practice this directly, that is exactly what this channel is here for, and the next lesson will be waiting whenever you are ready for it. For now, one honest question worth answering before the day fills up again. What is the one thing you already know matters most? The the one you keep letting the many things push aside.